What's up, everybody? This is Skylar with Savage Truth 603, and this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a little while now, since January. So, since January 23rd, actually, 2 months, a little over 2 months. So, I decided January 23rd of 2019 to stop drinking. I was drinking probably 30 ounces of Sailor Jerry, 90 proof rum every day, religiously. And then it was drinking beers at lunchtime and drinking every day, at on weekends at, starting right at noon. And like, if I went to a function and didn't drink enough, like I felt off or didn't, it was just this like weird obsession. I did this for a long time, a decade probably. And I just, I had a relationship fall apart, and I definitely believe that all the drinking had a lot to do with that. So I kind of made a decision to stop and I told myself I was going to take a year off, and after that year I would kind of reassess the situation, I guess. I guess I did it differently than a lot of people do. I guess, a lot of people, they go to rehab or they need meetings or whatever, or they get into a situation that they can't get out of, and that's what makes them, or they're forced into stopping drinking. I just chose to. I planned it, and I made a date, and I didn't like binge my balls off while I was, approaching the date. I just kept everything normal, and as a matter of fact, I started working a lot, like 12, 16, 18 hours a day, because the longer I focused on working it delayed when I would start drinking if I stayed really focused on work. So I did that sometimes to try to like work my way into it, and so I saw two counselors for a year, and I did get myself into some trouble beforehand. I got a DWI, which is not a small thing, but it certainly could have been a lot worse in the grand scheme of things. But that wasn't what made me do it. I was hurting from this relationship failure. It really took a lot out of me, and I got sick of waking up feeling like shit every day. Like I would wake up and just have a headache and feel dehydrated, and I don't know, it was like some days at like right around 5 o'clock when I would get out of work, I would start getting like this pit in my stomach, and like my hands would always shake. People always talked about my hands shaking. And that's embarrassing. Like, I'm a person who's always had a pretty disciplined lifestyle. I've always taken good care of my body. I care about what I eat. I care about what I drink. I care about what's in the air. I think a lot about the plastics that we use and just all this stuff. I boxed for years, so physical health was a big part of my life. And even before boxing, I just always cared about being healthy and strong. So, like, not only did drinking take away any motivation for me to be healthy in that regard, but I just, I was poisoning my body. And a couple of years ago, I went to a doctor's appointment, and I think this is what really nudged me towards taking a hard look at how much I drank. I went to a doctor's appointment and for a physical, and I was in perfect health, but they said that my triglycerides were through the roof, and they asked me if I was a heavy drinker, and I said yes. And the doctor looked me in the face and he said, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to have cirrhosis before you're 45. So was kind of an eye opener. It didn't stop me from drinking, but it bounced around in my head every time I poured a drink for the next few months. And that was a big part of what led me to make the choice. And so I chose January 23rd for a very specific reason. It's a special date for me, and it always will be, so I wanted to make it more special, I guess. So I talked to my counselors ahead of time. Both really supportive in different ways. One of them, she's a little younger and a little cooler, I guess. Had a really laid back approach to it. The other counselor that I saw, great lady, but had me kind of scared that like I was gonna die, because there's only two things you can die from withdrawals from, and that's alcohol and heroin. So they had me scared. They gave me a prescription for benzos and told me that literally if like I start feeling really bad that I should drink, which is crazy to me. I was nervous, and so the day came, and I woke up that day, and I remember thinking like, this is it. And actually, the night before, I made my last drink, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the last of the bottle, and I took a picture of it, and I posted it on Instagram. A picture of the Sailor Jerry bottle, and kind of said my goodbye. And I woke up the next day determined. And today is March 27th, and I haven't touched alcohol since that day. It's been over a year now. When the year came, I told my counselors, I told my kids, I told everybody, like, this is a year-long test for me, and when the year is over, I don't know what's gonna happen. I may want to be able to drink. I may want to whatever. I don't know. And then when the year came, I just I remember like asking myself why I even considered it. Like, what are the benefits of me going to the bar right now? Like, I kind of wanted to have a celebratory couple of beers. Like, yeah, I did it. I went a whole year without alcohol, and for somebody who drank as much as I did, that's pretty crazy. And I didn't really struggle. I guess I should back up a little bit. So day one, like, I woke up determined, and just like I said, right around 5 or 6 o'clock, as I was getting home from work, I had this pit in my stomach, and I started getting real sweaty and shaky and anxious as hell. Like, I felt like I was gonna have a breakdown. It was crazy, and I'm not an overly anxious person. Well, at least I thought I wasn't, and I want to touch on that again in a minute, but there was this moment, and it was on the first day that I was in my house and I was all alone. My kids were gone, and I was sitting. It was just dark in my house, and I was just sitting there on the couch, like feeling like total shit. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna have a drink because this is, I feel like shit, and they told me to. But I got up and I grabbed a glass of water instead, and I sat back down, and I'm like, I'm just gonna ride this out for a little while because I don't like this feeling, and if I don't power through it now, I'm gonna have to try to do this again some other time, and it's probably gonna be worse. I'm a pretty strong person, I have a strong will, and so I just decided that I didn't want to feel like I had a weakness like this, like I was a slave to something and it had control over me, and I didn't drink. And that was the hardest moment, was facing the uncomfortableness of not drinking for the first time and forcing myself through it and forcing myself to deal with that feeling and experience it. And keep reminding myself. I just kept reminding myself, like, I don't ever want to do this again. I don't want to feel like this again. This sucks. But it was a momentary thing. It was only a few minutes that I really felt that weakness and felt really shitty. And literally the next day, that was in the evening, and I ate something and went to bed early. And the next day it was like a light switch. I woke up. I didn't have a headache. I didn't feel like a raisin, like all dried up inside. I felt just a little healthier and a little more alert. And that every day I woke up feeling a little better. And one thing that absolutely blew my mind that I didn't expect was the anxiety. And this is not a negative, this is actually a positive, because I had developed a pretty severe anxiety. I don't know what you would call it. I was just really like high strung and very anxious about things that I didn't need to be, but I didn't understand that I was not thinking clearly. And I wish that somebody had taken the time to help me see that. And I had to figure it out on my own, and it was a bit of a struggle to figure that out. But it was like day 3, I remember waking up and my hands weren't shaking anymore, and I felt happy, and like all this anxiousness about these stupid little situations in my life, everything just seemed to have like less of an edge. It seemed to be less bothersome and less of a disaster. So I think that was the thing that really kept me wanting to continue to not drink. And I don't call myself sober. I smoke major weed, bro. But I don't touch anything pills wise. I mean, I just broke my arm and they were trying to give me pills, and I refused everything. Not a pill person. Drinking was my weakness for sure. Like I said, I like to smoke weed, but I think we're in an era now finally where it's not only socially acceptable, but people understand that smoking weed has far fewer detrimental effects on your body than drinking does. And you get people that'll argue those points all day, but I personally feel 1,000 times better than I did when I drank every day. So I know a lot of people who would say the same thing. Alcohol is a poison. There's no question about that. Every time you drink, you're poisoning your body. And if you can do that in moderation, good for you. Some people can, some people can't. I've learned that. I've always known that moderation is not really my thing. So I think that's what, when I hit that year mark and decided I really didn't want to go drink, or I didn't want to grab a couple beers or whatever, I think it was just because I don't do moderation well. I'm a fucking full steam ahead kind of guy, and I like to take things to the extreme. So I'm just gonna not. And maybe on special occasions, maybe when my boys each turn 21, I'll go have some beers with them or whatever, but that's a maybe. Maybe I won't. Maybe they won't want to. My kids don't have any interest in alcohol whatsoever, so one of the things that I think was probably one of, like, really crucial in my being able to step away from alcohol, I had a really good support system, and that doesn't translate to a large support system. I have a really small family. My mom and 2 aunts and my stepdad, a couple of cousins. That's literally my entire family. I keep my social circle very small because I'm not really a fan of people. And I hold myself to such a high standard. I project those standards onto others, and it makes me dislike people because they don't live up to those standards. So, but the people that I do keep close were it just so happened that they were the right kind of people. It wasn't that I sought out people that don't drink. But my two best friends who met after I was friends with one of them, they fell in love, and both, he became my ride or die homie, my best friend, my snowboarding brother, and I'm not going to say his name, but he doesn't drink, and he came into my life at a moment where I really didn't have a lot of hope, and offered me nothing more than a simple friendship. And we became motorcycle homies. It was summertime at the time when we met. Rode motorcycles all the time, and then started, doing other stuff together, and became best friends, snowboarding brothers. Me and my son and my two homies. We snowboard almost every weekend. That's been a huge distraction for me, and it's a great outlet. But really, I think that surrounding myself by people with the right messages is what got me through it. I'm not an AA person, and I don't, no disrespect to anybody that is. I don't like the message from AA because they kind of force you to say that you're powerless over alcohol. And I personally think that's the wrong way to address a fight. You're stepping, this is a fight, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever your vice may be. It could be sex, could be cigarettes, who knows. But to say that you're gonna walk away from this thing that has a stranglehold on your life, but you're gonna walk away by saying that you're powerless and that you don't have control over yourself, I think is absurd. For people to literally sit in a circle and chant how they're powerless over a substance it's baffling how anybody can become sober in that environment. When you're constantly telling yourself that you're weak and that you can't say no to these substances, and you have to have this giant group of people chanting things to make you better. It's kind of like a weird church dynamic, and there's a lot of religion mixed in with Alcoholics Anonymous, which is another reason that I just can't buy into that philosophy at all. And like I said, I'm grateful for AA for who it does help, because it's helped some family members of mine, but it's just not the way that I wanted to approach it. And it comes down to, I pride myself as being a very strong person, like I said, physically and mentally, and I'm not letting any human being control my life. And if I'm not going to let a human being, then I'm certainly not going to let a substance control my life. And that's kind of what it came down to in the end. So I put down the bottle, and a year and 2 months later, I have no reason to want to drink again. Life's great. Even in this quarantine, I'm good. I got plenty of reefer to last me, so so that's my story. Hopefully I can help you guys out, or at least people have said that I've inspired other people with my my journey, I guess. So hopefully somebody out there will see this video and have the courage to make a date and remind themselves that they're strong enough to do anything that they want, because the only thing stopping you from putting down the bottle or putting down the drugs is yourself. And I know addiction is a scary thing, and I understand that, some people say it's a disease and some people say it's not. And growing up around addiction my entire life, I'm kind of on the fence about that disease thing. I think some of it is environment. I think that some people do have something pre-programmed in their DNA where they reach for something to escape. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe I don't have all the answers. I know it worked for me. Hopefully it'll inspire somebody to take the first steps to save their own life, because nobody's going to do it for you. So, to summarize, what I learned about myself without alcohol is my thoughts are much more crisp I feel like I speak with more clarity, better intent. I feel like I can put my thoughts together more cleanly. I didn't realize I would stutter a lot and like lose focus. I would have trouble pulling words that I wanted to pull out, and these were all effects from alcohol, and I didn't even realize it until after the fact. It was like it was this slow degeneration of my basic skills, and I didn't see it because it had taken years. But then when I stopped, the reversal of those effects was so fast that it made a massive difference. I have virtually no anxiety. Again, my mental clarity, I feel like, is much better. I'm more organized. I feel happier. I feel healthier. I can't really think of any reason, like any negative effect that alcohol has had on, or not having alcohol has had on my life, except it's a little, social gatherings are a little more challenging. Not because I can't go to social gatherings because I'm worried that I can't handle it or whatever. I can go sit at a bar and have lunch. It's like I do it on the regular. It's not a problem for me at all. I'm not tempted like that. But people, when you tell them that you don't drink, have a tendency to not invite you to things where there's going to be drinking. Stop it. Like, if there's something that I'm not comfortable with, I'll tell you. But otherwise, like, don't not invite me to stuff because I don't drink. I mean, if anything, I'm just going to be an automatic designated driver for people who need a ride home. And then the other weird thing is, like, dating definitely has its disadvantages with the drinking thing, because, you know, you loosen up a little bit with a couple of drinks or whatever, but above and beyond that, it's hard to even set up, like, a first meeting with somebody. Like, hey, you want to grab a Kool-Aid? You want to get some OJ? Be wicked fun. So, you know, you throw a coffee or dinner or whatever, but that's a little weird. So, but it's worth it. Those small sacrifices, my life is far better as a whole. So, I'm willing to make that sacrifice. So I don't want everybody to get this impression that it was all sunshine and rainbows when I stopped drinking, because it wasn't. You know, I went through a lot of ups and downs in my personal life. I lost a job making $80,000 a year. And, you know, there was a lot of, you know, child custody stuff and child support stuff that I've just been beat over the head with for a decade or better. Actually, yeah, a decade. But I never used that as an excuse to start drinking. Like, it just wasn't going to fix my problems. There was a couple times I remember, not those times specifically, just times where I had been stressed and would think, man, I would love nothing more than to go sit at the draft and have a couple of stone faces, you know. But what is that going to fix? I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning with a headache and still have the problems that I have, and that's what stopped me every time. It's just not going to fix anything. So, wasn't all rainbows and sunshine, but definitely worth it in my experience. So, that's it on the no drinking. Maybe I'll update you guys in another year if that's what happens. I don't really have a plan one way or the other. That's it. This is Skylar with Savage Truth 603. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Subscribe, like, and hit that notification. Peace.